And as I said, we'll answer your questions at the end. But it's great that we have Olivia here just to hear directly from the Law Society really what is happening in terms of traineeships in Scotland at the moment. Olivia will be able to give us some advice also on applying for traineeships, where they are, and the timeline involved in that, which will be helpful. And I will talk about some career support that we have available for you as a student of law at Glasgow, and also give you some tips for your applications. So without further ado, I'm going to invite Olivia in, and she's going to kick off the session today. Thanks, Olivia.
Hello, everybody. Thanks for having me along. I'm sorry I can't see any of you, but I can see there are quite a lot of you in the session, which is great to see. So I am just going to pop my screen on and go through a presentation. So hopefully just about everybody can see that. So my name's Olivia Moore. I'm the Careers and Wellbeing Manager at the Law Society of Scotland. I might have met some of you before, but I have just come back from maternity leave, actually, so I might not have met some of you, but I've worked at the Law Society for about 6.5 years now, so have a really good insight into the current market, what's also happened over the past few years. I've worked with a lot of employers and a lot of students on things like employability, and all specific to the legal profession. So I'm hoping that I can give you some useful information today. So things I'm going to cover: just a little bit of background information on traineeship eligibility, because people will have different levels of understanding about how the next part of the process works in terms of what comes after the LLB or after the diploma. A bit on understanding what employers are looking for and how to build on your experience and skills. As I say, that is as a result of engaging with employers, legal employers, over the last few years. So I've got a good understanding of what they like and what they're looking for. The current landscape of traineeships in Scotland, which I'm sure all of you are very keen to know what the job market looks like. Bit of myth busting when it comes to traineeships, because there is a bit of fake news out there. Some employer recruitment information in terms of timelines and bits and pieces that are useful to know. I'll cover a bit on student wellbeing, because that is about 50% of my job, is improving wellbeing and mental health in the legal profession, and it is really important, and this is a really stressful time that you're going through when you're trying to manage kind of university job seeking and anything else that you might have going on as well. And then I'll just signpost to a few bits of further information and resources for students. So firstly, in terms of the next step that comes after the LLB, it's just to clarify, you must complete the diploma in professional legal practice. I say this because there is, well, the route differs a lot from England and Wales. There are sometimes people who aren't 100% sure about the diploma. People get confused and think it's a master's qualification that would count towards the next step to qualification, which it doesn't. The next step, if you want to become a solicitor, is the diploma, and that acts as a bridge between the LLB and traineeship. It is taught at Glasgow, along with 5 other universities: Strathclyde, Dundee, Edinburgh, Aberdeen, and Robert Gordon University. Applications open every year between February and April. We will be coming back as the Law Society to Glasgow to do a talk on this for 4th year students or 2nd year accelerated students at the end of January / beginning of February. And that'll be everything you need to know about the application process, because this does change a little bit from year to year, and it is under review kind of constantly, but particularly a little bit at the moment. So I'm not going to give any more information on the diploma, but it's just a flag that you need to know about it. And if you are in 4th year, there will be information that's made available. There's a guidance note. We do sessions, as I say, and universities hold virtual open days as well. There's more info about the diploma on our website also, if you want to look for that sooner rather than later. So on to traineeships. Just to clarify, who can I do a traineeship with? The main thing is that you have to be supervised by a Scottish qualified solicitor. Theoretically, that you know, you do need to be based in Scotland. There are a few exceptions to that, but there is no exception to being supervised by a Scottish qualified solicitor. This might be in a big firm, where there are lots of Scottish qualified solicitors. It might be in a high street where you're working with 1 or 2 other solicitors and some paralegals and legal assistants, etc. And it might be for an in-house organisation where there is a small legal team, or it might be an in-house organisation that has a massive legal team, like Royal Bank of Scotland, really big legal team. Whereas if you look at the Scottish Rugby Union, that has an in-house legal team, and I think there are about 4 people in it. So there is a wide variety of in-house teams that you can apply for. Now, at what stage do people get traineeships? Just to clarify this, big firms, as you know, can recruit as early as 3rd year. I am imagining that's not a massive surprise to lots of people, but if it is, I would encourage you to look into this now. High street firms, often when they need a trainee, and in-house organisations are a mix between that. Now, I'm going to come back onto these stages and timelines a little bit later in the presentation, but it's just to give a bit of an outline. So this is, I think, a really interesting slide. So try not to take it all in at once. Let's just focus on the left-hand side first. So when employers are looking for future graduates, trainees would be part of that group. The Bright Network asked pools of graduates a question: what do you think graduate employers value most in candidates? And the left-hand side of this shows what graduates thought employers wanted. So I think this is probably unsurprising to a lot of you. People thought 2-1 or above would be number 1, then in existing industry experience, communication skills, problem solving, etc. And then down the bottom, team management skills, leadership skills, and resilience. So you can have a think about whether you would have put that or not. But on the right-hand side, the Bright Network asked employers, what do they look for in their graduates? And the answers are actually quite different. So number 1 was actually passion for the business. You'll see that was a middling answer for the graduates. Number 2, resilience. That was at the bottom for graduates as well. Then there are a few that are more or less in between, but the other ones that are important are a 2-1 above in their degree. That came 6th, so that was not number 1. And then existing industry experience was down at the bottom as well. Now, I have to say, this is not legal employer specific. This is for a range of disciplines and industries. However, I think that a lot of the information does hold true. Employers are telling us more and more that no, you do not have to have had an internship and you do not have to have done this and that. They look for work experience, but it's not that you always have to have legal experience. There is a variety in that, which I'll come on to when it comes to internships and how that can feed into the traineeship pipeline. But plenty of legal employers want to see a variety of work experience on CVs, or things like volunteering and other interests. So there isn't always the expectation that you've been like doing a paralegal job or you have done a 3-month internship or something like that. More employers are actually taking off the 2-1 requirement. Not all, but some. It's worth bearing in mind. But resilience and passion for the business are interesting and really far up there. And I think passion for the business is especially important when we're thinking about sort of how you can sell yourself, how you can show your enthusiasm, how much research you've done about an organization. I mean, you'll have a lot of passion for the law and the industry, and it's so important that that comes across. But for specific employers as well, and why you want to work there, that's why it's so important that you research things like culture, values, type of work that employers do. They want to know why you applied for them rather than everybody or anybody else. So that's just an interesting kind of background slide, I think, to be aware of. We'll then go on to your student timeline. So this is a little bit of an infographic that illustrates like how you can pick up different skills and when you would expect different things to happen within your university journey. And I put this in as well because it's hard to know what year group everybody is in. Some people will be in final year, a couple of people might be on the diploma, but there might be people who are in 1st or 2nd year coming along to this talk. So this illustrates that you can start thinking about your path from year 1. you don't have to, it's not trying to add extra pressure, but it's more thinking, you know, how do I not leave everything until third year or fourth year or diploma year, when you also obviously have a lot of work going on as well? How can you kind of pace yourself over the course of your degree to pick up different skills? So some of the things on here: positions of responsibility as a student. How can you get involved with student life, but also, you know, pick up bits and pieces if you want to be treasurer for this or secretary for so and so, or take on a president role for a sports club. Like, those things are all really helpful, just in terms of managing your time and people. I've been a president of a netball club, and it is far more complicated than I had anticipated, and I definitely would categorize it akin to work experience. But there are various things you can do. Get work experience. Doesn't have to be legal, as I was saying, because they teach you a wide range of skills. You might want to learn more about the law, but that might be doing things like sitting in for court hearings. I'm not 100% sure what the status of that is at the moment and whether you can go in now following COVID, but it's worth keeping an eye on that, because you can sit in often in the public gallery. So if you want to work in litigation, or if you're interested in being in the Crown Office and Procurator Fiscal Service, or joining as a criminal practitioner, that sort of thing, then getting in the courtroom is a really good idea to find out if you like it, if it draws you in, and also meet some people as well. Your exam results matter, as I'm sure you're aware, in first and second year, as they are taken into consideration when you apply for the diploma. And then there are other bits and pieces about thinking, are you commercially aware? Can you up your business knowledge? Are there maybe some extra kind of CPD type courses that you can do if they're not covered at your university, which they might be as well, or there might be optional modules you can take. Check you've got your deadlines written down and in order, and you know when different employers are opening up their application windows, and yeah, when to make speculative applications, which is later, and I'm going to come on to that in a minute. But it just gives you an overview of all of how you can space things out and how you can do all of these things throughout your course if you do want to. A note on accelerated students: although you're technically a first or second year, we would categorize you really as a third and fourth year, because you're going to have finished your studies at the same time as current third or fourth years, which does mean you kind of get pushed into everything quite quickly, and actually you might end up applying for internships and traineeships really quickly. So I would advise that you use your careers service, especially for accelerated students, but you will likely have lots of transferable skills that you've picked up during a previous career or a previous degree, and those are things that you can really use to your advantage when you're applying. And I would say try to get to know the profession as quickly as possible. So things like, think if you can, like work experience or internships, or a mentor about that as well. They can all help with that. Because you will want to find out more quickly what area of law you want to pursue. You might already have a good idea of that, but if you don't have a good idea of it, it's handy to sort of front load your research, actually, because that will really help you get your application windows in at the right time. Sorry, I've just jumped onto the next slide now. One I'm sure you do all want to see is traineeship numbers. So this is giving you a little bit of a market update. Now, we are seeing good news on traineeship numbers. There's kind of no two ways about that, but it's always really hard to know if it is a one-off year or not. And I mean, actually, it's not really a one-off year. It's likely going to be a two-off year, if anything, and if it does return to normal. So we have seen traineeship numbers rebound encouragingly since COVID. So as you can see, actually last year's traineeship numbers at 744 were really high compared to other years. You know, they were fairly healthy in 2017, 2018, and they were sitting at about 589, but we were up at 744. So that will have taken in a lot of the trainees from the previous year, because we were down at about 440 from recollection. So some people's traineeships will have been deferred. Some employers will have decided to hold off and then wait to recruit later. but it is good that that pool has kind of been collected up by all of the employers, and then there have been a lot of traineeships available last year. Now we keep close tabs on the numbers for this year coming forward, and we are expecting there might actually be a similar number this year of traineeships starting. That means in this practice year, so that would be from the 1st of November 2020 to 2021, sorry, to the 31st of October 2022, we are actually envisaging seeing a similar high number of traineeships, which is really good news, and it does mean that employment opportunities are out there. As I say, I'll caveat by saying we don't know what's going to happen with the numbers over the next few years. As you can see from the graph, there can be sharp rises and falls, but it is encouraging news for now. So if you're thinking, oh my God, there won't be any traineeships because of COVID and the industry won't have recovered, that is just not what we're seeing, which is really good. So positive things to say about that. This is interesting in terms of trainee statistics and knowing what size of firms trainees work in and how they are distributed. So you'll see in-house traineeships, that always sits around 12%, or it certainly has done since I worked at the Law Society, so for the past 6 years or so. Now, a third of the profession works in-house, but only about 12% of trainees are in-house. There are various reasons for that in terms of funding and availability to train staff, etc. But even if you do have ambitions to work in-house, ultimately, if you don't get an in-house traineeship, it isn't the end of the world, because a lot of people move in-house, obviously, if a third of the profession are working in-house, following on from the traineeship. But it's interesting to know that they exist. They're often really a lot more difficult to find in terms of opportunities, but that is a substantial number. Now, the Crown Office and Procurator Fiscal Service will account for a fairly large number of those traineeships. I can't think what proportion of that percentage it would be, but yeah, quite a number of them will be COFs trainees, but there are various in-house employers that do take people on. It's an interesting rise in the number of traineeships in 2 to 5 partner firms, so in pretty small firms, and that's a quarter of trainees. I don't think people might anticipate that would be so high. And then when you add it on to sole practitioners, that's a third of traineeships are with small firms and sole practitioners. And those are the firms that are not going to recruit very far in advance. So a third of traineeships probably aren't actually up for grabs at the moment until you're on your diploma course at least, which is just interesting to know. So if you have ambitions to work for a small firm, the opportunities are there. They might just come a bit later. Again, I'll cover that a little bit more in a bit. And then we've got a bit of a spread. We used to have 50% of trainees, I would say, in like 11 plus partner firms, but that has dropped off a little bit in terms of proportion because of the rise in the smaller firms, which is interesting. But there are obviously still a lot of big firm opportunities to be had, and they're obviously very good at publicising themselves. So you've probably seen a lot of them. So Traineeship statistics continued. This is about location. So it's just showing the spread of opportunities across Scotland. I think it's always good to be aware, because sometimes people are quite interested in a geographical area, but there might not be very many traineeships in it. So it's good to be aware of these things. So there is, I think, more of a comprehensive list available on our website if you look under trainee statistics in the traineeship section. But Edinburgh and Lothians is in orange on 286. Then we've got green, Glasgow and Greater Glasgow 247. Then we've got other regions in purple, which is 102, which is basically everywhere excluding the other 3 bits: Aberdeen and Aberdeenshire 57, Dundee and Angus 37, and Highlands and Islands 15. So there is a good spread, and I think it's probably quite proportionate as well to where people live, but there is a bit of a variety, like where the universities are, because I always say to Aberdeen students, because there are 2 universities obviously in Aberdeen that do the law, so but there aren't a particularly high number of traineeships, so some people might be looking to relocate, but it's good to have an idea of what the market is looking like. Anyway, I'll move on to a bit about the post-COVID picture. I have hopefully already made you feel a bit better about numbers of opportunities. And I think the main other thing to say about post-COVID is we're getting back to in-person engagement. So I'm seeing some trainees do now work from home some of the time. Flexible working in terms of a home and office, like hybrid working, is definitely available, and it's much more widespread than it would have been before the pandemic. So I think, you know, it might be quite likely, especially if you're in a bigger firm or an in-house organization, that you would be able to get some sort of hybrid option if that's what you're looking for. But anecdotal evidence suggests, basically from me speaking to trainees, that they like to be in the office more. And that's because you learn from osmosis. It's easier to be with other people. There's less stress about kind of making mistakes. And if you're with other people in the office and supervised, and you've got other trainees potentially there or colleagues that you can just talk things over with, it can be easier. So spending too much time at home, you know, you don't want it to lead to feelings of isolation as a trainee and added stress and that sort of thing. So, but there is a real mixture. I think it's just interesting to see how that will progress over the next year or two. Recruitment processes, I think you can expect that there will likely be a blend of online and in person, especially for earlier stages, those being online. But employers are certainly seeing people more and more in person. Some internships are still likely to be delivered online, but not all. I'm surprised that internships are still coming in online. There are some arguments that it is good for inclusion and being able to attract people from different areas in Scotland. Obviously, it's not as easy for some people to travel to different locations, so it could broaden your opportunities. You know, if you're based in Glasgow, you actually might apply for an internship somewhere else, and if it's delivered virtually, then there's no kind of drama about travel and accommodation, etc. But yeah, not all of them, and quite a lot of them are going back to in person. So I would probably expect that in general. And I would just remember, like, get yourself back out there and attend as many in-person events as possible. I spoke to Shirley before this, and she said the careers fair that was on last week was actually really well attended, which the careers service weren't really sure how that would be and whether people will be coming back. But it is great that people are. It will be very stressful at the beginning and a bit weird, especially if you haven't done loads of in-person engagement with employers particularly, but everybody in your cohort is in the same boat. Like, everybody knows. And even, to be honest, like, people who are professionals already, like solicitors, they'll feel probably quite nervous about going to a law fair to be with loads of people or a networking event, because none of us are used to it. It's just, we're all out for habit of doing it. But I think certainly the approach I am taking is just get back in the boat. Get back in the boat, that's not the right expression, but you know, put yourself back out there and just get back into it if you can. But you might have to start slowly, but a law fair is a perfect place to do that. It feels a little bit pressure off, I think, because there are so many other people. Few myth busting things next I want to cover. So if I haven't secured a traineeship, I shouldn't apply to study the diploma. Now, this does say wrong, but it is a personal decision. Some people will not want to take the financial risk of doing the diploma and the time risk involved in it without a traineeship, and absolutely understand that. It's a very personal decision. But just so you know, we would say around 50% of traineeships are secured during or after the diploma. So not everybody has a traineeship before the diploma. You shouldn't expect that everybody has a traineeship before the diploma. But as I say, if it's important to you, then you know you want to be applying for bigger employers that start their timelines earlier, so you have one secured beforehand. But that might well put other employers out of reach. So if you wanted to work for a very small employer, that would probably be unlikely, because they likely wouldn't recruit until during or after the diploma. But so that's an interesting stat. Should I be applying for all traineeship opportunities open now? Totally depends on what you want. I would advise always quality, not quantity. It's very obvious to an employer if you're putting out blanket applications or if you haven't really taken the time. I know applications take such a long time, but I think that's why it is so important to spend, like, I'm trying to think like how long they might take. Say it takes 2 hours or 3 hours. better to spend 2 hours doing something really well than taking 1 hour and still spending the time doing it and just not doing it very well and not standing out, because at the end of the day, it's a competitive market and you have to stand out. So the applications have to be spot on, is the reality. So yeah, I think it's worth thinking about what you actually want. And if you want to work for a commercial firm, apply now, and a larger firm if they've got their windows open. But if you know you want to work for a small firm, and you know that they don't recruit until later, don't feel like you need to, just because other people are applying, you need to do it. It's up to you what you want to do with your career. Most traineeships are in the big firms. So if I choose to apply to a small firm, I'm reducing my chances of securing a traineeship. That would be wrong. We just saw the spread of where the traineeships are, and actually about half of them last year were in those smaller firms and in-house collectively, I would say. Definitely within smaller firms if you take 6 to 10 partner firms into account as well. So there is a real spread. It's just they seem more invisible because those employers are not as good at advertising for them, and you have to do the work as a job seeker to find the opportunities, which is harder, but they are there. So how do employers recruit? What you need to be familiar with, and I don't think these things are going to be surprising, and Shirley might go into this in a bit more detail. The standard application forms that you might have come across already, they're quite hefty, but they might include various questions. They might be competency based, they might be a bit describe a time when, that's what that means, and you give an example of what you did in a scenario, or they might ask about your background, your interest in a firm or an organization, what you know about them. So they are quite chunky and they can take a long time. Psychometric testing, sometimes, especially from big firms, these would be things like numerical reasoning tests or verbal reasoning tests. I personally hate psychometric testing. I am not good at them, and if I was applying for a traineeship now, I would be doing practice psychometric tests, which are available if I wanted to apply for a big firm that I knew used them. So I definitely advise that if you think the employer does use that, and they'll probably say on their website about the application process. Speculative applications, there's some information about this on our website, and the Careers Service will likely have some too, but that's when you apply with a CV and covering letter to an employer. They haven't necessarily put out a job advert, but you apply to them anyway and say, look, I'm really interested in your firm. Do you have any opportunities? And you will find that employers do recruit. Smaller employers will recruit in this way. Not always exclusively. Sorry, I've got my phone ringing. Not always exclusively, but they definitely will do. There are lots of instances where solicitors say, yes, that's how I got my traineeship. I just wrote in a letter. So it does happen, even though you might have to put in quite a lot before one sticks. Being familiar with interview skills, so important. Networking skills, also really important, especially if you're going to things like assessment days. Contextualized recruitment systems, I've popped that on there as well because more and more firms are using them, especially bigger firms. Now, I do want to say, no one is going to be disadvantaged by a contextualized recruitment system. There are lots of, again, fake news about this. And yeah, they're not true. They're designed, usually when a firm is using a contextualized recruitment system, they would run their application process in the normal way, and they would select candidates from whatever criteria they already used. But then they would use a contextualized recruitment system to kind of get a second layer of people into interviews who maybe were not getting seen from their applications and were in the sort of hefty, like maybe pile of applications where everybody kind of looks quite similar. But actually, when you take certain factors into account, like people's ability to access different opportunities, it shows that some people actually deserve to get to the second round, because had they had more opportunities, they probably would have been in your automatic yes pile. So that's what it's for. Nobody is going to be disadvantaged. So please just be honest on an application form, use the contextualized recruitment system. And it's really to benefit certain people rather than, hold anybody else back. So you will see them more and more, especially rare recruitment. So that's what that is if you see it. Selling yourself is the most important thing that you can learn. I would say that it doesn't matter how good a lawyer you think you're going to be, etc. But you do need to learn how to talk about yourself in an application form or in an interview setting and connect with the employer. And if that means doing sort of practice interviews, practice applications, etc., I really, really encourage you to do that. So I'll just canter through because I am conscious I want to move on and let Shirley do a bit. So when do employers recruit? We've covered this a little bit already. Big firms, as we know, as early as third year for internships. You've probably seen them already for placements the following year, likely 2 year in advance for traineeships. Medium-sized firms / bigger in-house organizations, likely applying for internships for the coming summer. And for traineeships, like maybe a year ahead as well. And then small firms, no set structure, can be in advance for a small window or to start imminently, but small firms tend to recruit trainees when they need them. They'll think, we've got a lot of work coming in, and that's going to, set us on this course for the next 6 months a year. Maybe we should be taking on a trainee, or it was in there. They're able to take on that kind of resource. So that's just to set the expectations. Bit on VAC schemes. Some employers do recruit exclusively from their internship / vacation scheme pool. So they will usually be upfront about this. But that is why if you have certain employers that you want to work for, and that they recruit either heavily or exclusively from that pool of people who've done an internship, you obviously want to get an internship there. This might not bother you at all if it's not the type of employer you want to apply for, or it's not relevant to someone you want to apply for. But even employers that don't recruit exclusively from internship pools, some of them, it's not uncommon for them to say recruit 70% of their trainees from internship pools, and then some that didn't do the internship. And that might be, internships aren't feasible for everybody. Not everybody can take the time off work or whatever else they might be doing to down tools and go and do that for a month or 2 months, etc. So I like to see employers definitely leaving some opportunities open for people to get last minute, but some employers use them basically as an extended interview. So there is variety, but find out in advance, because if this is relevant to the employers you're interested in, then you need to make sure you're on the right time scale for it. Advice: use the law fair tomorrow to find this information out. You can just ask the employers tomorrow. It's a great question. Speak to firms' graduate recruitment teams. If you can't find the info on the website, I would send an email and just find out. As I say, if it's a firm you want to train at, get your internship application in early. Staying organized while job hunting. This is very brief. Just write yourself. I would always recommend, if I was looking for a traineeship, in an Excel spreadsheet, list down all of the employers that you are interested in. How do they recruit? What date does their internship kind of thing close, if they run one, or if it's speculative or whatever? List that out with a closing date or a target date that you're setting yourself, and then have it all in one place, because a lot of the time you'll find you're interested in a lot of different employers and it's quite complicated. So get it in a consolidated document. I am getting to the end, Shirley, I promise. On well-being, this is an important one, so I will talk about this seriously. Balancing finding a traineeship, studying, and possibly working, as I was saying, can be a really hard patch to go through. It's challenging, but it should not be completely overwhelming. So I do want to remind people to use your student welfare support services if you need them. That is what they are there for. Use your careers service for careers support. You can contact the Law Society Careers Service as well if it's a careers related thing. If you're having workload issues, seriously, then you can speak to your lecturers. I don't know what they will be able to do, but you need to kind of tell people, find out what's possible, etc. if you are in a really sort of difficult, sticky situation. We've got various resources on our website for Law Scott Wellbeing. There are different webinars that you can watch, modules and videos, etc., and a few links to resources and that type of thing, which I'd encourage you to check out. And I just wanted to make you aware that there is actually a legal wellbeing mental health charity specifically called Lawcare. You may have heard of them already, but if you haven't, you can call Lawcare. They're open, their phone lines are open basically on business hours, 9 till 5 during the week, but they are all ex-legal practitioners, and they all really know what they are talking about. So if you just need someone to talk to and you want to be completely anonymous or not, you can ring Lawcare. It's a great service. So you are eligible to call them and speak to them if you're a student, but you can also do that, you know, if you're a trainee, if you're newly qualified, or even if you've been practicing for a long time. But I would say try not to get sucked into gossip about traineeships to protect your own well-being. There's no right way. There are different times, different stages, different situations. Just because your friend has got something and you haven't, or it seems like a lot of other people have, I promise you there is a real spread of when people get their traineeships, and you know, if and when that happens, there is a massive variety. It doesn't mean you're doing anything wrong, but feel free to get more support if you want to. I'll talk about that on my next slide. And I just want to say, if becoming a solicitor isn't for you and you're like, oh, I'm getting to the end of like 3rd, 4th year, and I just don't even know if I want this, I don't know if I want to apply for the diploma, you don't have to, and you don't have to imminently. You could take a break from the LLB and then apply for the diploma later. There's no expiry date. You could do that way later, so don't worry. And lots of other people, about 50% at least of graduates, complete the full route in terms of their LLB, and then just decide to go off and do something else, and that is their decision. Law is a fantastic qualification, so you can do whatever you want. If being a solicitor doesn't feel right, or for some reason the opportunities don't come your way, there are so many other things that you can do. It is a great degree. Mentoring, great opportunity for other support. You can get help with applications, talk about traineeship options, prepare for the workplace, and this would see you being matched with a trainee who's just gone through the application process, who knows what it is like, which is really good. So they would be really helpful as a resource. So you can see the link on our website there. So find mentoring on our website, and you can always email me as well if you're interested in getting one, but really recommended. You can also sign up as a student associate if you haven't already, and we send out monthly newsletters designed for students, and we have various other volunteering opportunities as well. Final point is we're running a law fair as well on Wednesday the 19th of October. Sign up for that. It is online, it's on Zoom. I haven't put the link here, but it is on our website in the events section. I might send it to Shirley, who can send it around everybody, or I think maybe my colleague already has, but look out for information about that or seek it out on our website. It's a great opportunity to meet different employers. Now we'll cover the Q&A later, and I have done plenty of talking, so I'm going to hand back to Shirley now, but that is my email address if you would like to make a note of it, and please just drop me an email anytime if you've got any other questions that you don't want to ask today. But thank you, and I'll come back for the Q&A.
Thank you very much, Olivia. That was really interesting, and I found it very encouraging to see your stats there on traineeships over this last year, and hopefully again this coming year, because I think a lot of law students are concerned about that, and it's just really good to hear that the numbers are really healthy, and going forward, that's great news. So I shall just get my presentation and we'll carry on. Thank you for that. Okay, so can you see my slides? You can see the slides, yeah? Yeah, okay, great. So the first, oh no, I don't think, is that right? You can, I'm getting lots of thumbs up.
Lots of thumbs up.
Can you see get that traineeship? Yeah,
yes.
You can, that's great, okay. Right, what I'm going to do first of all, I think, is just talk about some of the career support that there is for students. And we support you from day one, right up to 2 years after you graduate. So don't think that, you know, once you graduate, that's it, and we're going to forget you. We are here should you need it up to 2 years after graduation. There's lots of support there, and I think particularly at the moment, I'd draw your attention to the events. So if you log into our website here, go to the events section and you'll see all the events that we have. We started with the careers fair last week, and obviously we've got the law fair tomorrow, but interspersed between our different fairs, more coming up later, interspersed, we've got lots of employers coming on campus to do presentations, to meet with you. There's lots of alumni coming to do talks. So just take advantage of everything that there is to help you inform your next career step. The Student Job Hub we launched a couple of years ago, and that's great for part-time work. So, you know, it is important that you can develop your CV as you're going on to this next year of study. And if you're looking for a part-time job, we've got lots of on-campus part-time work as well as locally. So that's super. But the main thing that I really want to draw your attention to here is probably the Internship Hub from after what Olivia's been saying. A lot of law firms now are moving towards recruiting out of the vacation schemes, sometimes just solely through the vacation scheme. Now at Glasgow, we're fortunate to have the Internship Hub, which is our exclusive internship program. And you're not competing for these internships with any other students from other universities. They're just for Glasgow. So it's very worth your while checking the Internship Hub regularly to see if there's any internships on there that you want to apply for. We do have a good number of legal internships. And so please do remember that. Throughout the year, we work with the law school to cover around 50 legal internships that are slightly different. These are over a 6 to 12 month period generally. They'll give you lots of experience on working with clients, legal research, etc. So organisations like Legal Services Agency, Citizens Advice, Shelter, some of the law centres, Govan Law Centre was a big one last year, Advice Direct Scotland, Just Right Scotland. These will be advertised through the Internship Hub, probably this semester. So yeah, just wanted to make you aware of that, how important it is to keep looking, because it's being updated all the time. We run masterclasses to cover every aspect of the application process. So right from the very beginning in application forms and CVs, through cover letters, through interviews, assessment centres. These are live online sessions like this. You can book on a time to suit you. So please check again on our events page and book yourself onto a masterclass to suit you with whatever step you're at. Olivia mentioned psychometric testing, and that is often, particularly with the big firms, a part of the selection process. If you go onto our homepage and scroll down, you'll see that we have a link to our own practice test facility for psychometric tests, and it covers the wide range from numerical tests to spatial reasoning tests to verbal tests, and you can click on there to practice the type of test that's coming up. And the Watson-Glaser test is on there, and that's one that a lot of the law firms use as part of their selection process. So please remember that to check on our website and have a practice before you're actually invited to a psychometric test or before you go through a psychometric test. The law school Moodle, the employability Moodle, that's your one-stop shop to everything there to help you with your career. I would draw your attention to the different fields of law. I mean, I think it's really important that you start to think about what you're interested in. And we've got, again, resources in there covering all types of law. So you can go and read up and research and just get clued up about particular areas that you might want to focus on in terms of your applications. We've got the vacation placements tile, we've got traineeships and training contracts there, lots of advice from employers, podcasts, webinars you can watch to see what employers are saying, what the HR people are saying that they want from students in your application. So that will really help your traineeship applications. And commercial awareness I'm coming on to talk about, but we have a tile there on ideas for developing your commercial awareness, because that's something that really all law firms are looking for in terms of their traineeship applications. Yeah, we've got the application process there too that goes into things in more detail to help you with each step. So please remember the law school Moodle and use that for the resources to help you with your applications. Key messages I would say to you at this stage: do try and keep involved. I know it's difficult. You're trying to manage lots of different things, but there are so many things you can do, and often it doesn't take too much time. You can join a student law society. You can start blogging. You can do something that suits you, that's going to just keep your CV active, or volunteer. Just try and keep that CV fresh this year as you go forward, and however much or how little time you've got to devote to that. Start reading about the sectors, and I'm going to give you some tips for that and some resources to look at. But you know, you're transitioning from being a student to going into the working world at this stage, and the more you know about what it's like to work as a lawyer, the more you can read about what's involved in the daily lives, then and what the issues are that they're grappling with, then that will really help your applications when you come to make them to firms. And get connected and start building your network. And we've got some advice for you on that. So I think those would be my key messages for today. With networking, think about, well, joining GULS. We're very fortunate at Glasgow to have such an active student law society, and many student law societies now, they're growing every year for different areas of the law. So check out again the area you're particularly interested in and join that society, and you'll get some great networking opportunities. You'll get to go and listen to employers in that field. So again, it will just help you develop your knowledge when it comes to filling in application forms. That will give you some interesting stuff to talk about. You can join the Scottish Young Lawyers Association. They're going to come along to the law fair tomorrow. So go and chat to them and find out what there is going on this year. But there's usually events you can go to and start to meet practicing lawyers. TANQ is another one, TANQ, that's trainee and newly qualified. As a student, you can join them and you can get access to some of their events that they run throughout the year. So have a look and see what is most suitable for where you're at, and just join and get along, start going along to events where you're meeting people, or joining in on webinars like this where you can just build your knowledge, because all that will help in terms of your applications. We run LinkedIn masterclasses. I should have said that at that time. I think it was on the slide. But also the College of Social Science, because you remember, if you have a look on the website for the College of Social Sciences, you'll see that they also do a lot of support on LinkedIn and some individual support with your profile. So check that out if you haven't already done so. We've got the resources that I think are really helpful to start reading about all aspects of the law. Lawcareers.net is excellent. Lawyer to Be is the student version of the Lawyer. You know, if you can be looking at these and reading the articles that are coming out, the new blogs, the fresh stuff, it will keep you up to date with what's going on and will really help, particularly when you come to interviews with law firms, but at the application stage too. So these are really good resources to get familiar with. You've got the journal there from the Law Society of Scotland. The more that you can be reading and finding out and researching, then it's going to help. I just had a quick look here. What you need to do when it comes to your applications is you need to show that you're a match for an employer. And you want to know, first of all, what they're looking for. And the law fair tomorrow will be a great opportunity to get along and start to engage with employers and find out what are they actually looking for. Because if you don't know what they're looking for, you can't show them that you're a match. And that's really what you want to do. That's what the first stage of the application process is about, is saying, yes, I've got the competencies, I've got what you're looking for, bring me in for an interview. So here, Slaughter and May, this is what they're saying this year. It's very overt, it's easy to see. Other smaller firms, it'll be more difficult, and you might need to be a bit more creative about how you find out the particular list of competencies or what they're particularly looking for. But what you need to do in your applications and in your CV is to show that you have these competencies or skills and attributes that the firms are looking for. So here's Slaughter and May. They're looking for a range of interests outside of the law. You can read through this list. But when you're applying to them, you need to then show that you have what they're saying they want from students. And when you're doing your self-reflection, I think you need to give evidence that you have these competencies. And that evidence can come from all areas of your life. So as Olivia said, they're not all looking for legal work experience. Don't worry if you feel you have no legal experience. Really, what makes a good application is an all-round evidence bank. So from your studies, from your part-time work, from your volunteering, from your interests, from your work experience, and from any professional memberships. These, when you're answering the questions, try and vary where you're getting the evidence from, and that makes a good all-round application. You also need to convince them that you really want to work for them and that you want to show a deep research into what they do. So don't just look on the website, because everybody will look on the website and tell them about themselves. When they ask that question, why do you want to work for me? Go deeper and find some really interesting facts so that you can make yourself stand out a bit in your application. So find out about their clients, find out about their locations, the number of employees they have. What's the competition? What are the main issues that they're grappling with? Have they won an award recently? And check out their social media presence. You can find a lot from social media about what they're currently up to. So you have to do that research first of all, because every employer wants to believe you really want to work for them and you're not just doing blanket applications to everybody. In your CVs and applications, do think about the wording that you use. Every employer is wanting to bring somebody in who's going to bring impact, who's going to add value to what they do. So by using just the words, it can make a big difference. There's a list here you can go and you can Google and find more yourself. This is one that I found, but you know, if you're describing some of the things that you've done and you're using words like supervised, organized, formulated, generated, created, these words sound impactful, and an employer will be thinking, yes, this person will come in and you know they will be able to add value to what we do. So just the wording can make a big difference to how you present yourself in your applications and CVs. I mentioned using social media. I think that's really important. I would be following. So follow particular legal employers, start to follow key individuals who are maybe a mover or a shaker in an area of law. Instagram is getting really popular now, so follow them on Instagram, YouTube, Twitter. There are key blogs and podcasts as well that are really useful, that will help build your knowledge. So I had a quick look to see what key blogs there might be. Well, obviously the Law Society of Scotland, we've got Olivia here. You know, you do want to be looking at the blogs that they're putting out, and that they have trainees that are putting out blogs regularly, which is a great source of information for you. But if you're thinking about the bar long term, we've got Barrister Blogger, we've got Davidson Morris for immigration work, Family Law from LexisNexis, IPCAT for intellectual property. So there's a lot going on here that you can tap into. My Scottish Law blog comes from Bruce DeVert at Georgesons and Wick and Thurso, and he posts about Scottish divorce and Scottish powers of attorney. So whatever area you're interested in, the UK Human Rights blog, I know a lot of Glasgow students are interested in human rights. Have a look on the Venables site. I found a lot there. Venables does a very good list of blogs. And so you want to be starting to follow these, because it will really help your applications. And join any LinkedIn groups that are in your area of interest, because that will really help too. Finally, sorry, we're really running out of time, aren't we? Very, very finally then, I think it's important to develop your commercial awareness. There is so much in terms of commercial awareness on application forms. Virtually every form I pick up, not just in law now, but generally graduate employment, they're asking about your commercial awareness. So what is it? Well, it's really an understanding of clients, business, the business that the firm's operating in. You've got to try and demonstrate that, and demonstrate that you can help drive the firm's business forward. These are just some tips I've got here to help develop that. But, you know, if you listen to podcasts such as the Business Daily podcast from the World Service or the Economist podcast, you will then get clued up on current affairs, on business and global issues. There's some tweets here which you can go back and look at, and blogs like we've got here for BBC Business is very good. And the LCN, the Law Career Network's Commercial Connect newsletter, you can follow that regularly, and that gives you, again, some great insight into commercial awareness from a legal perspective, Scottish legal and lexology. And I really would emphasize too the importance of speculative applications, particularly now when everyone's trying to save money on recruitment costs. Use the Law Society of Scotland's finest solicitor resource to find solicitors specialising in the area you're interested in, or a geographical area. Always address, if you're doing speculative, try and get the name of an individual to send it to. Sound knowledgeable about the firm, and try and convince them that you're suitable for a traineeship with them. So highlight your strengths. What are your USPs? What are your unique selling points? How can you make yourself stand out? And just really convince them that you are passionate about what they want to do, what they're doing, and that you want to contribute to that. So that really is me in a nutshell. That's what I wanted to cover. I know that's been a real whistle stop at the end, but I know that some of you will be heading off to other sessions. So I just wanted to say stay in touch with us and just follow us and make sure you don't miss out on everything that's happening. We'll have a quick look at the Q&A. I think there was one question from earlier. I'm not sure if there are any more. I'll just come out of my...
there are a couple.
Okay.
So this, I can quickly, because I've been looking. Usual dress code for law fairs. I would say I would err on the smart casual side, because it shows you haven't just wandered in the last minute. You're actually prepared. You want to meet the employer. They'll probably be wearing smart casual as well. I mean, if you're a first, second year, it doesn't matter so much, but I think you want to show that you're keen to meet the employers. It's just a bit more respectful, in my opinion. I'll just pop in the chat a handy blog I have written recently about lawfare advice for attending. So I've just dropped that in there. And then
thanks, Olivia.
No worries. And then the other question is, I've just started third year looking for traineeships, only could find applications for 2023 or 2024 grads. But I thought I would only be applying for 2025 grads, as this is when I finish my diploma. Am I right? Or is it classed as when you finish the LRB? It would be when you finish your diploma. So that would be 2025 grads. I think if you're in a third year, that would be normal. So you will likely be able to start applying for internships at this point, because you can do that at the end of, I mean, typically fourth year, some can do third year. But yeah, into the actual traineeships, you probably are applying for in fourth year onwards. And then finally, what would you say to this, Shirley? What should we expect from the law fair? Is it worth going if you aren't at the stage of pursuing particular firms?
I would, because they're open to seeing students from first year up to finishing the diploma or LLMs. But I think definitely go, because whatever stage you're at in your journey, it'll help you. You can go, you're not applying for jobs at this stage, you're only finding out information. So you can go and you can ask questions, and that will help inform your decisions going forward. As I say, I wouldn't be handing out a CV at the law fair. I don't think that's what it's there for. It's there for you to engage with employers, find out information that will help you perhaps make an application in the future, or decide whether firms and particular organizations are of interest to you.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
agreed.
Do you agree?
Yeah, I think that's well put. Should we answer a couple more and keep going, or
I think we need to watch our time. So I think maybe one more, and then I think we do need to wind it up. But you can always email into the careers at Glasgow, and we can perhaps answer by email later. But no, I think in terms of the seminar, we do need to finish, and some students will be going off to other sessions.
Yeah, no problem. Well, the first one that came in is being in a sports team enough to impress employers, or do you need a position, e.g. club captain? I mean, I think you want to show that you are interested in various things. So it's great if you do extracurricular activities, but in terms of if you want to turn that into a skill, and then talk about your transferable experience, I think you can do that to a certain extent by being in a sports team, because it's like, you know, community stuff, team building, working together. There are lots of things that you can say, but if you want to collect extra bits of information, like, you know, extra bits of experience like leadership, having to negotiate things like sports halls costs, budgeting for your team's kit, scheduling matches, that sort of thing, that opens up a whole different realm of other things. I think if you take on a position of responsibility within any sort of club, whether it's sports related or any sort of extracurricular activity, there is a lot involved. So you can talk, there are different things to talk about. There's more to talk about if you have a position of responsibility, but everything I think is helpful and shows your range of interest.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I hope you've all found that interesting and useful. I would like to just say a huge thanks to Olivia for giving her time this afternoon, because I think it's been invaluable hearing directly from you, and what you had to say was extremely helpful for students, really, whatever stage they're at, in terms of their applications and thinking about applying into law. So thank you very, very much for that.